And welcome to an hour with the candidates on LPTV, Libertarian Party Television, a production of the Libertarian Party. Dan Fishman, executive producer. And of course, I'm your host, Pat Ford. Let's get right to it. We know why we're here tonight. With just a week to go for, I think, one of the great elections in Libertarian history, we're going to double down. Throughout the week, we've invited some folks back who were on the show in its earliest days when we were just on a handful of rooms before we made it to the big LP Facebook page, as well as a handful of candidates who have truly made national news, carrying the Libertarian Party banner, the philosophy, our platform, to parts of the country, both geographically, philosophically, that we've never been before. Folks, this has been an astonishing election. I believe we've taken the case to the Libertarian movement that we don't have to wait years before we get that much talked about bench. We don't have to wait for the next generation to take the Libertarian philosophy down to the local level. It's here already. We've had dozens of candidates over the last few months join us, from town councils to transit boards to state senate halls to governorships to the United States Congress, both Senate and House of Representatives. I've had the opportunity through the Joe Jorgensen campaign to work with media from literally around the country. It's been a great honor and a whole lot of fun. One constant from all of these media types is the astonishment when they ask a Libertarian candidate a question on an issue, both great and small. They get answers. They get focus. And I'm very proud of the efforts that have been made by so many people, so many families, so much sacrifice around the country. And if this show has helped in some small way to amplify that, I'm profoundly grateful for the Libertarian Party to giving me the opportunity to participate. Let's get down to it. Elliot Scheirman, United States Congress, Texas, District 2, Houston, running against some pretty heavy candidates. Yet there he is, right in the center of things. Elliot, thanks for joining us again. How's the campaign going?
Thanks for having me back, Pat. It's going great, and it is crunch time right now. As you mentioned, I am going up against some heavyweights here in the Houston area running for Congress. I'm going up against Dan Crenshaw, the Republican incumbent, and Seema Lajvardian, the Democratic challenger, who is Beto's former campaign manager. My race is the most expensive congressional race in the entire country. So when you say up against some big opposition, you are not mistaken.
Resonating with voters from the Houston and the greater Houston metropolitan area.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the first part of that question.
What issues are resonating with voters from your district?
Well, there are three that whenever I speak with people that they just keep coming back to. One is jobs, two is healthcare, and three is feeling secure. With the COVID outbreak and the resulting shutdowns of jobs, a lot of people have been told by the government that they are not essential and that they need to sit at home and collect a check from the government instead of going out and providing for their families. And that's not a sustainable model. And a lot of people have had their careers interrupted. They've had life savings that they've poured into their own small businesses just pulled out from under them and destroyed. And there's so much uncertainty in the market going forward that hiring for a lot of those people who lost their jobs just is at a lull. And it's really impacting a lot of people in a really bad way. Healthcare is always going to be something that's on people's minds, especially if there's a medical issue like a viral outbreak going on. People are worried about not being able to afford insurance or care, and they want to look for solutions. And we as libertarians are here to tell them that there's a way to get lower cost healthcare that does not require the government getting even more regulations or more control or more restrictions to trade in the way. And when it comes to safety, we've all seen the effects of these protests and riots across the country that have been in response to police brutality. And there's a lot of unrest that goes along with that. A lot of innocent people have been hurt in the process. And we really want to get back to a place where, we as Americans can feel safe in our cities and our homes. So being able to help communicate the libertarian solutions to these problems. And again, those are three of the top ones that I hear about. I talk to people all the time when I'm out doing block walking in the area, out in the communities and the various communities in my very gerrymandered district. But those are the top three that I consistently hear about. And I really enjoy telling them how libertarians can solve things like free markets opening up job opportunities, free markets opening up lower cost healthcare, and holding the government accountable when they do wrong to help end the unrest and resulting protests.
As we discussed the last time you appeared on the show, immigration is a very, very personal issue across the state of Texas, particularly across, if you will, the southern border. The libertarian philosophy for immigration, how has it resonated with folks from southern Texas who are literally on the front lines of that challenge?
Well, that's something that divides a lot of people, unfortunately. As libertarians, we obviously like to promote free markets, and there's nothing more free market than allowing the supply of labor to meet the demand for it. So if American business owners want to be able to hire whoever they want, libertarians argue that they ought to be able to. It's their private property, and they ought to be able to use that property however they want. On the other hand, you have people who are worried about a welfare system collapse if you have too many immigrants coming in, which is a valid concern, except for the fact that immigrants are net taxpayers, both legal and illegal. So there's really not a financial argument to be made against that. So it's helpful for us as libertarians to be able to help communicate that virtually every economist worth their salt will say that immigration is a net positive for a country, and America's built on immigration. It's what we're about, welcoming the huddled masses, the poor huddled masses here, so that we can give them a shot at the American dream. There's nothing more American or more liberty focused than supporting a welcoming immigration process. I believe the Ellis Island style approach is the one that makes the most sense, so that we can weed out wanted criminals or anyone with infectious diseases. But really, it just comes down to let's be Americans and be good neighbors.
What's fascinating about the issue, and you nailed it, is that the net result of immigration is economic growth. And it's important to focus on both ends of the, if you will, the employment spectrum. You've got great research universities in Texas, built up over the last 30 or 40 years to be some of the premier institutions in the country. Those universities reflect literally a melting pot of every conceivable background from literally around the world. And then we, in Texas at the same level, in the agricultural sector and across the United States, those immigrants who are qualified to work at that level represent a critical point in the food chain. And we saw that firsthand when we had COVID impact the immigrant community disproportionately, and what that had as far as an impact on our food supply. So with those obvious examples just literally hitting us in the face every day, regardless of where we live in this country, why do you think that's such a challenge for the duopoly to absorb, and why do they fight so vociferously against it?
Honestly, I think it's just an amalgamation of bad habits. Immigrants are kind of a historical scapegoat. It doesn't matter where they're from or what period of American history. Immigrants have always had a rough time, and unfortunately, that tradition has carried on into 2020. We're still here seeing the effects of that with this latest generation of immigrants, and who gets to be the bad guy or blamed for when you can't find a job, or when you feel like there's downward pressure on wages. So those are real concerns that Americans care about, and it really helps to highlight the fact that diversity strengthens America. And you mentioned research institutions here in Texas. I'm an alumnus from the University of Houston, which at one point, I'm not sure if it is anymore, it was the most diverse university in the entire country. And that experience, I found that the more exposed you are to people from different cultures, the more likely you are to be more welcoming and to be more accepting of people who are different from you. It's something that you can't really fake. You just kind of have to meet people who are different in order to appreciate those differences about them.
When Trump took his first shot at closing the borders right at the height of the Christmas, if you will, academic travel rush. Anyone who's been involved in academia understands that so many of these foreign students, so many of these foreign professors, research associates, some of the great minds in the world who have come to the United States to grow and to bring their family, realize the potential for their sweat equity in any one of a number of startup economic environments. When he shut those borders and left those people literally in limbo, we had to understand at that point that despite being, quote unquote, the great businessman, the deal maker, that the Republican Party had really no fundamental understanding of, well, let's just say, how things work. And then, there was a startling moment in last night's presidential debate where, it was clear, and Trump's got to give him credit for this, if you will, scoring points when he pointed out that it was the Obanistas that built the cages. Yet at the same time, he's the gentleman who shut down, I use the term gentleman loosely, shut down a legal refugee process that had been in place for decades successfully. So, we talk about this being a not a sprint, but a marathon. But through your efforts, have you seen folks get a greater understanding, if you will, of just how well things do work, or they should, to their benefit?
Yeah, so some of the rebuttals that we tend to hear often are just get in line or just do it the right way. And what a lot of people who say that don't understand is just getting in line and doing it the right way. First of all, there's a lot of dead ends to that line. And if you don't fit an exact perfect set of criteria by either knowing someone here, being related to someone who's already a citizen, having a job lined up, or an employer willing to vouch for you, or any number of different things, or inability to pay the tens of thousands of dollars, or wait the 5 to 20 years it takes to the legal path to citizenship, you just assume that people are flippantly ignoring our laws, when in fact they're designed, but they are by design difficult, expensive, and it's meant to dissuade people from coming here, which is not the kind of America we should want to live in. We should make immigration an open, clear, streamlined legal process, so that the term illegal immigrant it's a thing of the past. If you have people who can do things the right way and it's not intentionally burdensome, then they will be above the board. You won't have you'll have law enforcement freed up to actually pursue crimes where there are victims involved, rather than just people who are trying to provide a better life for their family. And it's an overall net benefit, as I said, to the economy.
Let's talk about COVID for a second. When you and I first met on these very same airwaves, we were still, as a nation, referring often to the term flatten the curve. And the interdiction, if you will, of COVID was based almost solely on the notion that we needed to restrict interaction, human activity, so that we would not overburden our healthcare facilities. And I believe that personally to be a legit concern. However, moving forward, as we saw both the federal government, if you will, if you want to dignify their response with the term response, and particularly at the state level, you saw states continue to use this as a tool, both for economic purposes as well as political purposes. And now, instead of attempting to find a way to live with this disease, we are still being herded by government into these catastrophic economic shutdowns. What, for the folks in your district that you're running for the United States Congress for, what are their frustrations? What do they want to see done? Give us a sense of what they're thinking right now.
It's heartbreaking, Pat. I've met with hundreds and thousands of people so far in this campaign, and the one thing I keep consistently hearing is we need to be responsible with our masks and our in dealing with the proper precautions for interacting with other people. But we need to give our small business owners a fighting chance. I spoke with someone who owns owned, past tense, a brewery here in the Houston area, and they had to shutter their doors. The Republican governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, said he closed down anyone who basically had under a certain percentage of food sales in what they served. So breweries that just sold beer were totally caught flat-footed in that, and they were victims of this shutdown. They were not given an opportunity to take the information that was known, employ the social distancing precautions, make people wear masks or stand or seat a certain amount of distance apart so that they could have a fighting chance to keep their business in order. They just complied and went out of business. And that's so wrong. a lot of the Republicans, in fact, like to say that, the Democrats are shutting everything down. But here in Texas, it's a bipartisan effort between the Republican state governor and there's a local Democratic county judge who's had a very heavy hand on the Greater Houston area's operations. And between the two of them, there have been multiple shutdowns and reopenings and re-shutdowns as things continue to spike. Spike being a bad word in this context, otherwise libertarians like that word. Sorry about the joke there, but when I'm talking about something serious, but really, this should never have been a partisan issue. Healthcare should not be a partisan issue. When you have a president who says things like it's a hoax, all of his followers immediately internalize that, and it becomes part of their identity to, not wear a mask in public or intentionally go to a COVID party just as an act of defiance. And that sort of thing has made it almost impossible for us to make any actual progress on dealing with this. Again, I think it's responsible to take precautions, and it's certainly respectful to those who you might not even know are immunocompromised, to respect their distance and not cough or get in their space. But like I said, Americans need a fighting chance to be able to deal with this, to take precautions and operate safely so that they can put food on their own family's table.
I know I probably sound like someone looking for sort of those first green shoots of liberty in sort of that icy wasteland of what civil liberties have become here in the United States. But, you have to wonder the sheer arbitrary nature of living under COVID. Again, as so many people have said in far better ways, the notion that if you, COVID at Walmart, no problem. COVID at your local bodega, COVID at your local supermarket, COVID at your local small business, big problem. Here in the state of Rhode Island, we've got a if you will, a monopoly on casino gaming to one large corporation. They're allowed on the weekend to keep their bars open until 2:00 because COVID doesn't come to their bars. COVID comes to other bars though at 11:00, right on schedule. Are people seeing the sheer nonsense of this, and do they tie it in to just the sheer banality of government? And I'm asking these questions because, after this election's over, we as a philosophy, a movement, a political party, we need to take the lessons that we learn from folks like you who have immersed themselves in their community. And we need to in a sense, strategize from your experiences literally on the front lines.
Yeah, I think that the government has overplayed its hand, to be honest. More people are awakening to the fact that libertarianism is a way to oppose this overstep of government, is actually an alternative that they, by virtue of their job not existing anymore, have come to realize is a necessity. And it's really upsetting that things have to get this bad. But I think that we, as a consistently principled group of people who are fighting for a better America, really have an opportunity to help people realize we're on your side. We want to help get through this, but we want to do this in a way that empowers you, that not subjugates you. It's very frustrating to see how many people are being harmed by the government, more so than are being harmed by any virus. And I don't want to diminish the importance of or the danger of the virus. A lot of people have been seriously harmed or have lost their lives, and my heart breaks for the family members who have had to deal with loss like that. I think that we as a society should be responsible because we are empowered individuals.
And we as libertarians, when we look at our own personal Venn diagrams, if we will, understand that you can respect and even harbor a tiny bit of fear for this disease, while at the same time seeing government overstepping their boundaries for what it represents, which is a crushing, if you will, of our civil liberties. One need not be exclusive of the other, just as one need not be exclusive in supporting a libertarian, because that means you must be supporting a Democrat or you must be supporting a Republican. All of that nonsense, which leads me to want to talk about voting in Texas right now. Now, last we heard, and the media, as you know, kind of ins and outs on reporting the after effects, but your governor decided to remove voting boxes, if you will, from significant parts of the country, and was to us as outsiders look clearly like an attempted voter suppression in areas of Texas not friendly to Mr. Abbott and his ilk. What happened with that? And you, since we last spoke, you've also had a near political death experience with the Republican Party in the state of Texas attempting, if you will, to remove you from the ballot. So what the hell is going on in Texas?
Oh my goodness. I think the Republicans' first, second, and third game plans for this election are voter suppression. That's what I'm convinced after seeing all of the attempts they've made to minimize their losses. People are abandoning this party. They say that they're not the party of fiscal responsibility anymore with their dizzying new highs of trillions in deficit spending. They see that a president who fully supports gun control, and they're saying, wait a second, this is not the Republican Party I signed up for. Now, when it comes to voter suppression here in Texas, we've had so many different issues. The governor initially said that if you are under 65 or under retirement age and you are not disabled, you cannot use mail-in voting this year. Obviously, that is a little bit of an extreme situation during COVID, and there's been pushback on that. So eventually, local counties overrode that and just sent out mail-in ballots to anyone who wanted them anyway. Then they said, okay, well, you're going to have to drop those mail-in ballots off in person so that we don't have widespread voter fraud. So that sounds reasonable on its face. But then following that decree, the governor said that there will be only one mail-in drop-off ballot spot per county. Now, there are over 200 counties in Texas, and they're very different sizes. The Harris County, where Houston is alone, has over 4 million people for one drop-off location, which is totally outrageous. Luckily, that was swatted down as well. It's just issue after issue you see between that and obviously the periodic gerrymandering, which is going to be coming up. I mentioned that again for my district because if you've seen it, it is a hook shape around the whole city. It makes no sense. But yeah, it just seems like every single opportunity the local Texas Republicans have to suppress voters or to minimize turnout, it doesn't seem like they can even care about harming their own supporters to do this. But they just keep doing it. That's their I guess that's their punchline, and they keep running to it. Now you also mentioned the ballot suppression, which is on the other side of things. That was voter suppression that I just talked about. On the ballot side, Republicans sued 44 Texas Libertarian candidates to get us off of the ballot, and they did so unsuccessfully. So you are able, if you are a Texas voter, you are able to vote for Texas Republicans right now, or sorry, Texas Libertarians right now, on your ballot during early voting, and we will be there on election day too. The reason they tried to sue us is that they in the last Texas legislative session, they passed a sneaky little law trying to get Texas Libertarians to help subsidize the primaries of the Republicans and Democrats. Let's think about that for a second.
Wow.
with all of the hoops we have to jump through and hurdles we have to cross just to get on the ballot, they're trying to make us pay for their internal party selections. Luckily, a state judge said this is nonsense and put an injunction on it. So several Libertarians were able to go ahead and file after that happened. Since it was still up in the air, though, because it was a Texas law that there was an injunction against, the Texas Democrats and Republicans conspired together. Now, this is important. These are two groups who on TV claim to hate each other and claim to be mortal enemies. They conspired together. The Dems felt like the Green Party was the biggest threat to them, so they sued any Green Party candidate who was in a race against a Democrat, and the Republicans sued any Libertarian candidate who was in a race against a Republican. I want to reemphasize that. There were Libertarians, Texas Libertarian candidates who were not sued if they were only up against a Democratic opponent. So this cherry-picking, targeted, bipartisan attempt to get rid of any competition on the ballot also occurred the week of the deadline for party chairs to be able to remove candidates from the ballot by sending an official notice to the Texas Secretary of State. So in addition to these shenanigans that they're pulling, they tried to do it and give us absolutely no time to mount any sort of legal response to it. Luckily, the Texas Supreme Court ruled unanimously in our favor, and told the Texas Republicans that were trying to sue us basically to go fly a kite. And it was a cowardly act of a desperate group. They see that they're losing power. They see that our message is better, and they they failed trying to suppress voter choice in Texas.
And they desperately cling to power, realizing that the final days are upon the Whig Party. I mean, sorry, the Republican Party. Oops. One of the folks who's following the show, and we thank them for this, pointed out that Mr. Rainwater of Indiana, another alumnus of the show, I might add, had the opportunity to debate and is, I think the common parlance is wiped the floor. I think that was a technical response elicited from many. You too have had some experience. Tell us where folks can see that, where they can see you in action.
That's great. I was actually really surprised that I had the opportunity to do this, but the Houston's biggest local newspaper, the Houston Chronicle, their editorial board actually hosted a quasi debate. I say quasi because they what they wanted to do was have sort of a debate style interview for their nomination as an editorial board. So it was actually just set up as a Zoom debate, and I got to debate Dan Crenshaw, and I got to debate the Democrat Seema Lavardyan, and it was like watching two siblings bicker. They fought, or they argued about whether or not someone lied about wearing a mask for about 20 minutes. Kind of a waste of time there. If you want content, you can scoot forward to about the 24-minute mark. I think you just dropped the YouTube link for it in the comments. But if you want to see it, you can just go on YouTube and search Houston Chronicle debate, Congressional District 2. I think that'll get you to it. But there you go at the bottom. It was really great, though, because I had the opportunity to reach out to people who've never heard from a libertarian before and give a voice to our party and our movement and be basically the rational adult in the room. And I really appreciate the Houston Chronicle editorial staff for giving us that opportunity. And it's worth a watch. It's about an hour long if you have the time to watch it. So I'd highly recommend doing so.
No, that's outstanding. And we'll make a point to share that as well. Because these are the sort of the breaks, the cracks in the foundation, if you will, of their little castle that are starting to happen across the country. And one of the reasons I'm so proud to be in some way associated and meeting folks like you and working with you in this capacity is that in every case, you guys and gals crush them. You kill it. And why it's so much fun to watch is that, and folks have remarked on this, it almost seems effortless. And I get back to the central point where we have a philosophy, we have a statement of principles, we have a platform. And by simply working within our platform, we will have the opportunity to govern based on our principles. As we like to say here, we will reach the highest levels of government and leave everyone else alone. Now that's wonderful. Now, you just mentioned, if you will, at the onset of the show, the incredible amount of money it's taken just to remain in the ballgame. Let's share with folks in a couple of different ways in the remaining days how they can help your campaign. And let's be blunt, build a machine so that you're reelected and you're able to take your experiences and let LP Texas take your experiences amongst all the candidates, all right, and move the ball forward. How can folks reach out to you?
Well, one thing before I talk about that is I really want to inspire, if you're watching this right now and you have seen or have early voted and seen any races where there wasn't a libertarian in the race, let that inspire you to start thinking about being a libertarian candidate. It's been an honor and a privilege for me to do this. I initially filed because I saw the Republican incumbent and how bad he was on gun rights, and I was thinking, come on, if the Republicans can't even defend our gun rights, then who can? And I was thinking, I hope there's a good libertarian that goes up against this guy. And then I was thinking, well, I'm a libertarian. I can talk about this stuff all day long. Why don't I give it a try? And I threw my hat in the ring and filed with the Secretary of State. And once I did that, I felt this overwhelming responsibility to run the absolute best campaign I could, to set a good example, to inspire others to follow behind me, and to be great fellow candidates in future races. And let me tell you, we have an amazing slate of candidates here in Texas,
Right.
and people who I'm very proud to represent our party. And if you have ever thought about it, even if you don't necessarily have the time or organization, run so that voters have an option, because there's nothing worse than getting to a race that affects your life because it's in your area and there's not a Libertarian to vote for. So think about others who might be in that situation and step up and help them out.
Excellent.
Now, back to the finance side. As I said, this is the most expensive congressional race in the entire United States. Crenshaw has raised over $15 million, which is about 1,000 times what I've raised. And that just goes to show that the desperation to remain in power is motivating these old parties to just throw obscene amounts of cash at this race. And I can absolutely guarantee you the cost per vote once we get the totals in 11 days is going to be ridiculous. I'm going to mop the floor with the Republican and Democrat in this race in terms of the value that I'm spending these preciously donated dollars in order to get the word out. I'm doing the hard work. I'm meeting out with voters. I'm knocking on doors. I'm talking with people. I'm going and doing all sorts of interviews, and all of the support from the people who have either volunteered with me or contributed financially is so appreciated. ScheirmanForCongress.com/donate is how you can contribute. If you want a little memento from the race, ScheirmanForCongress.com/store. There's some merchandise you can get there. The little tumblers have been super popular selling this year. A lot of people like that. And I've got this really cool logo here on it. Made a little Texas flag stylized for the race. So anyway, that's some ways you can help out. But tomorrow morning, I'm doing some more block walking. So if you're local in the Houston area and you want to help out, just reach out to me on my Facebook page, and I will be happy to get you connected and meet out with you. So it's all about making connections and letting people know that there is another and better option on their ballot.
Elliot, congratulations on just how you comport yourself, your dedication to libertarian philosophies, your willingness to, as I often point out, engage in one of the ultimate acts of patriotism, which is running for high public office. The exposure to your family, your job, your career, all of that is challenging to a lot of folks. Your willingness to do that is nothing short of an act of political bravery. And I commend you at every level for this, because we are better, regardless of the outcome. We are better as a movement, as a party, as a country, for your efforts, as well as other efforts of Libertarian Party candidates around the country. So congratulations. And I look forward, as I'm sure you do at this point, to next Tuesday and seeing how you do, and seeing not only just the votes, but again, how your message resonates, of course, a part of the country that may not have seen enough libertarians yet. You've certainly broken the ice, my friend.
Thank you so much. I saw a question come across on the pop-ups that said, how would I spend $500 donated right now? I can tell you right now that would go to full large signs. Those stick out so well at the polling locations. Just getting those rapidly printed so that my sign, or the one behind me there, can stand over a tower over the other candidates who are running, and it really makes it stick out. That gold on white pops, and people see it as they're going in to vote, and that's absolutely how I would spend $500 if it was donated right now. So I really do appreciate the contributions that have gotten me this far. I just unbelievably thankful for the support I've received, and if there's anything I can do to help you or your campaign, or just if you have any questions about thinking about running in the next cycle, please reach out to me. I am more than happy to talk you through it, coach you through some concerns, or anything you have about the process along the way.
Well, I'm happy to say that this show will continue in a slightly altered format post-election, and I'd like to invite you, and I'll have a number of other candidates come on in perhaps a slightly more interactive format to really discuss, take a couple weeks off, but then to start to really discuss the lessons learned from the campaign, what you've seen that's worked in your part of the country, how you've phrased issues, how you've constructed a narrative to develop and deliver your message. So this isn't going to end next Tuesday.
No.
We will continue to develop and deliver a message for all of our candidates around the country here on LPTV. It's proven to be a successful outlet for the mass dissemination of ideas and experiences. And I look forward to you being part of that.
Thank you. And I also want to do a shout out to Joe Jorgensen. Thank you so much for endorsing me on Twitter today. That was a really nice, unexpected little bonus. You called out my platforms on ending tax on overtime work, ending income tax on Social Security benefits, and term limits for Congress, which are something, each of those three topics, they all have over 70% support in America, and no one else is talking about it. And if you are a local libertarian candidate, please steal these ideas from me. If we can be the party that people understand helps retired people, helps people who are working hard to rebuild their finances after this economy has been devastated by government shutdowns. Let's be that helping hand, and let's get rid of the stigma that libertarians are only selfish. We care about people, and we want to solve things without all of the government violence.
Folks from Harkness House said they met you in Conroe, and this is one of the ultimate New England compliments. They say you're a stand-up guy.
Oh, thank you so much. I got to open for an event that Spike Cohen came down to visit in Conroe just last weekend, and it was great. The crowd was electric. Thank you all for showing up. It warms my heart to see that many people care about libertarianism, to come out. And it was an outdoor event, and they were spread out with tables and everything, but still there was a crowd, and it was great. Just on a personal note, Spike and his wife Tasha joined me and my fiance to dinner after the event, and it was just. They said it was the first sit-down dinner they'd been able to kind of have in a while, and it was just such a great way to humanize us. Like we're both. I'm obviously, my campaign isn't on the same level as a vice presidential one, but it was really nice to just kind of talk shop. And it's funny, we discovered that we all have a mutual love for rescuing dogs, and we got to talk about that for a while too. It was really nice to just have a kind of a break and unwind for an evening. So thanks again to both of them for joining us and for being great candidate.
Well, thanks again for joining us tonight, folks. Tomorrow night we've tentatively scheduled. It should be blocked in at this point any minute now. We're going to be having Joshua Flynn, who's running for the state Senate in the great state of Illinois. He'll be joining us tomorrow night at about 8:15, 8:30 ish. That'll be posted around the web tomorrow as we nail things down tonight. Again, my best wishes to Elliot Scheirman and his efforts and his staff and his volunteers for a noble battle. And here's to your victory, sir. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to LPTV, Libertarian Party Television, run by the Libertarian Party executive producer, Dan Fishman. My name is Pat Ford. I'll see you tomorrow night. Thanks for joining us. Have a wonderful evening.